Welcome to All About the Experiences. Today is my 30th episode. And much like when I turned 30, I can honestly look back and reflect on the growth of the show, and not only the show, myself. I can't say this enough. I discover so much about myself through my guests and their journey, their experiences, and just all of the life that they bring to the show. And so today will be no different. I want to thank last week's guest, Noelette Leader Hutton, for inspiring us through all of the stories that she shared through music and her new devotional book that's out, No More Monday Morning Blues. And if you haven't had an opportunity to view that episode, definitely go back. Truly inspiring. And I encourage you to go check out her book. It's available on Amazon. And she also has a website in name, Noelette, leaderhutton.com, and you'll be able to find lots of inspiration there. She does a weekly blog. Her music is jazz inspired, jazz gospel, my apologies, and just truly an absolute gem. And I was very fortunate to have her on this show. Much like today's guest, she is a facilitator, an educator, and girls, period. If let me not, I'm so excited. I'm getting tongue tied. We're going to start that over. As a facilitator, educator, and girls' period of empowerment guide, today's guest is committed to helping girls and women understand how impressive they really are. And I can certainly attest to that because she was instrumental in encouraging me in my formative years. And we'll get into that in a little bit. She holds a Ph.D. in psychology and has been featured as a speaker in conferences and women's organizations, as well as at educational institutions. And I can honestly say this too, is that we're all about higher education and empowering ourselves. She pours more than 25 years of teaching and counseling and training into her work with girls and women and leading the culture shift around a girls first period via her Sacred Rites of Passage program and coaching for parents. She is praised most for her unique ability to put people at ease while influencing them to reach higher. And again, I can attest to that. So without further ado, I welcome Dr. Carmen McNeil to All About the Experiences. Welcome, Carmen. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Well, thank you, Cheryl. It's just an honor to be here. And thank you for having this amazing platform.
Thank you. Well, I always start off the show with saying this, there is obviously a connection that I have, whether my guests are recommended to me or they reach out to me or I reach out to them, but there's always some sort of connection. And I'm proud to say that our connection is not only are we family, but in that brief bio or intro that I just gave, I can truly attest to the fact that you are inspiring and encouraging and have been a pinnacle piece of my life as far as wanting to encourage me to inspire to greater heights and even go ahead and get my degrees. And you are a true example of that. So we'll definitely get into that as we talk about your background, but welcome to All About the Experiences. And I am truly inspired and really excited to find out what the period of empowerment is all about. So please, let's get into that. Tell me, what is the period of empowerment?
Yes, well, the period of empowerment has to do with the various phases in our lives that we go through, and these various phases provide an opportunity for growth, provide an opportunity for empowerment. And one of the ways that it was inspired is via my years, like you mentioned in the awesome intro, thank you, of teaching and working with girls and women on both the East and the West Coasts. facilitating groups and workshops, psychoeducational circles, sacred sister circles,
Mm,
is that I recognize that there were certainly different milestones in our lives that we were missing in terms of honoring, that we were missing in terms of acknowledging. And so I said, you know what? It's time to acknowledge that we all have these various periods of empowerment.
mm.
And yeah.
It's when you say that, because sometimes, and I think we shared this off camera, is that there can be a negative connotation associated with, as women, as in correlation to your period, but also to different periods in our lives, as you grow into your womanhood. And so I think this is just so pointed and so needed. And I feel like I kind of had the inside track way back when, probably when you were even formulating this, even before you knew that you were going to come up with a period of empowerment. And I'm going to let you continue on, because I'm really excited about, what you have to offer in the way of encouraging, these girls and women.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. So there are certainly various periods of empowerment and that represent different milestones in our lives. And so one of them is indeed a girl's first period. The technical term for that is menarche.
Yes.
Um, and so what I recognize is that we, meaning adults, we're really almost doing our girls a disservice by not acknowledging this important milestone. Cheryl, I have spoken with grown women, 30 years old, 40 years old, who knew nothing about their period when it started, when they reached, menarche, their very first one. So if you can just imagine, a girl who might be 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, 9 years old, who knows nothing about this. And so her period is a complete surprise and shock. And so, from talking to various women and teens, I can see that there is this experience of embarrassment.
Mhm.
There is this experience of shame and wanting to conceal, not wanting anyone to know, that they're on their period for lots of reasons. Menstrual shaming is one of the
Right.
things that we definitely got to talk about too. But just not knowing, what to do. And, I'm a firm believer that the adults, it is our job to lift up, our
Mm.
children and to empower them and to guide them. And so I really, really feel like it is important to, one, not only educate girls and boys, we need to talk about that in a moment too, but to educate girls and boys about what this is and how natural it is, and how if it weren't for periods, none of us would be here, frankly. And so it's an
Absolutely.
important part of the human species. So that type of education is really, really critical. So girls understand what's happening. So to their bodies, they need to understand that sometimes some of the physical symptoms or experience that we might have, like cramping, for example. Cramping is actually the uterus preparing for contractions,
Mhm.
much down the line. So they need to know that, and they're going through this experience not knowing anything. So I feel like it is really, really important to educate girls about what it is that's happening with their bodies, encourage self-care, and I want to talk about that momentarily as well, and even celebrate. There are certain cultures that have celebrations like quinceañeras when girls turn 15, or bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, when the children turn around 11 or 12. And I feel like we are really, really missing the boat around not celebrating this important milestone, this important period of empowerment.
It's something interesting. It kind of triggered for me, is because typically, periods again have this negative connotation, but it's a time, you're absolutely correct, to celebrate. And I think taking that negativity out of it, and because I can remember, like, depending on who you talk to in the family, is just like, oh, you got the curse or this or that. And you're like, oh God, what? And as a young girl, I think I was 10 years old when I started. In fact, I started at your house, but I think I was 10 years old when I started. And it's kind of like you have all of these different emotions that are going on, and you're venturing into this new, you got to learn how to navigate pads, and protecting yourself or your clothing during that time. But also you're realizing, because by then typically you're in fifth or sixth grade, you've had, your health class where you're learning that now this is signifying that you can have a child, your body, like you said, in cramps, are preparing, your uterus is preparing to what it'll go through eventually, to birth a child. And so with that being said, taking that negative connotation out and really giving some core understanding around what's happening, I think it makes it easier to embrace these changes and really embrace them as something that's truly positive and that will render greater understanding emotionally as well. So I'm really interested to hear more about how you encourage the parents to embrace this new mindset, and also how they're to deliver that through your program to these girls.
Yes, yes. And I want to hang out and talk a little bit about that negative stigma a little bit as well, that negative connotation. You really hit the nail on the head when you use the word curse, because that's kind of how we think about it currently. Unfortunately, a lot of people think about that period as a curse. So just imagine, and you don't I really have to imagine because you've experienced it, but what it's like every month to feel like you are going to be cursed for 5 days or 10
Mm,
days, or
mhm.
whatever it is leading up to the cycle. And so what that does is it really perpetuates the negative experiences for girls and women when they are, leading up to their period. It's almost like, well, I have 3 weeks during the month where where I could be okay, but then the
Right,
curse is coming. And that is just not an empowering way to live. And so
right.
the other thing that it does is, when that your period is approaching, psychologically we begin to have more anxiety about it, more
Oh yeah.
fears about it. Do I have everything I need? I want to avoid leakages, because we want to avoid any sort of embarrassment. And so that psychology, that thinking, impacts how our body feels, because the mind and the body are definitely created or connected. And so that sort of negative thinking impacts how we physically experience our periods. And so, there are cultures and countries where they actually have a positive, or at least more positive than we do, thinking or ideology around periods. And the girls and the women in those particular cultures, they have a more positive physiological experience as well. It's not that they don't have any cramps or any bloating. That's not what we're suggesting, but they have a more positive perception of it. And so it's the whole experience of a period is actually respected by girls, by women, by men, and by boys as well. So that's another thing that I just really wanted to emphasize as well.
One of the things that I'm thinking about in terms of, and you mentioned boys, and I think it's really important because, typically during that time, that preteen to teen transition, you're doing things collectively together, boys and girls. And, we all know that there's those other things that are associated, like you said, the leakage, or, different smells, or odors, or, your breast getting gorged, and your body is truly going through this transformational process in preparation for later, hopefully, stage of life when you're going to have children. But also with that is the emotional side that's attached to it. And, that's when you start recognizing, the opposite sex, and how the dynamics change. These in fifth grade or fourth grade, these might have been the boys that you were playing kickball with, or, running around the playground. But then come fifth, sixth grade, it's a different, you're like, oh, well, he looks different, and voices are changing, and, you might be growing breasts now, and all of these different things. And so you feel, because of all these differences and all these changes that are coming about, I think it's hard to navigate that transition as well. And boys, I think even when they have sisters at home, it's kind of one of those things that, don't talk to your sister right now, she's going through something. And so that immediately starts putting this negative connotation in their head too, because we hear it, men saying, oh, it's that time of the month, those kind of things. And you're like, well, that starts all the way back then. And then every now and then you'll come across a young man or a man that is completely in the know, probably because his mom took the time and said, hey, yes, this is what we're going through, and you need to be able to understand this, because you'll have a woman in your life in some capacity, and you'll want to be ginger around that, and to make sure that you can accommodate her needs and whatnot. So I think it's really important that, like you said, boys are brought into this conversation as well, and they have a better understanding of how to not only engage, but relate to women, and be understanding of what they're going through, and not look at it as negative.
Absolutely, indeed. I wholeheartedly agree, because there's definitely widespread lack of education about, about what is happening. And so I was doing some research a while ago, and I came across an article where this boy said he made a comment that girls should be able to control their periods until they get to the bathroom. And it's like, what? Like, you have no clue about, what this is. We don't have control over the flow. So it is really, really important to dismantle this lack of education, this ignorance, which just means not knowing, right? This lack of
Mhm.
education, because, women's bodies are magnificent. It
Indeed.
is amazing, what we're able to do. And so if we start educating boys early, then that just really, really, they become allies, in the process, instead of boys, because of not knowing, mocking, what's happening. Because that example that you gave of, oh, a man or a boy saying, oh, you must be that time of the month, that's what we call period shaming. Okay.
Mhm.
And it's just not okay. And when we see that, when we hear that, we definitely need to nip it in the bud. Other examples of period shaming are, maybe a girl being at school and asking, her teacher to go to the bathroom, and the teacher demanding that she explain why she needs to go. Like, what?
Right.
No. So there are all these, experiences of period shaming, which do nothing to help, this particular experience.
I think we can all agree that when you said that, it made me think about being in Mr. Okawachi's class. And I'm like, I need to go, and we all know, I mean, I'm not have to get graphic, but when you stand up and you get that, you're like, oh, it's here. And then I'm like, can I go? Why do you need to go? Like, I don't want to explain that. And then
Right.
I think, in, who I am now, I probably would have been like, I'm sorry, I'm bleeding right now. Can I go now? But it's just like, it's just such a difficult transition. And I think, going back to what you said, educating yourself and educating even our educators on how to handle that is really important. And women, or young women, being able to embrace this and see it for the essence and the beauty of what it truly is and what it truly means. Can we talk about the emotional side of that as well? I know for me, I've always looked up to you and how you handle yourself, and how you've navigated from, the time that I can remember. You were probably middle or junior high on up, and how you do things with grace, and that has to come from somewhere. So where do you pull that from?
Well, that's an awesome question. I think it comes from a variety of places. One is, most people would not believe, but I'm an introvert. And
No.
so I'm definitely an introvert. And so there's a lot of misunderstanding about what that is too. Introverts just draw energy from being by themselves, whereas
Mm.
extroverts draw energy from being with other people. And that's the
And I
difference.
had a whole different connotation of what that is. So I'm glad that you said that. Because to me, when someone says, they call it, oh, you Cheryl's an extrovert because she's just, and then when you think of introvert, I'm thinking someone who just doesn't want to be bothered, but that's not the case.
Right,
So thank you for
exactly.
making light of that too.
Yes, yes. And so with my introverted self growing up, I did grow up very quiet. In groups of people, I love to observe dynamics. So I was always paying attention to what was going on. I just wasn't contributing, to what was being said, but I was definitely observant and paying attention to what was going on. Introverts are also very self-reflective. So I spend a lot of time in my head. I spend a lot of time, when I'm by myself, hibernating, rejuvenating and restoring, because those are important as well for
Absolutely.
everybody. That's where I sort of connect to, in a sense, my higher power, and this sense that there's something out there greater than me who loves me and wants me to achieve and wants me to, to do well and do what I was, put on the planet to do. So that's one of the places that I draw from, in
Okay.
terms of my emotional side and, what it is that I contribute. My stance is that I'm doing what I was put on the planet to do. And so that's how it manifests.
Okay.
One of the other places that I feel that it derives from is from my family, from my parents pouring into me, contributing to me, uplifting me, having very, sometimes difficult conversations. I remember a very clear conversation that my dad had with me. Maybe I was in like high school, and he said to me, "You are Black and you are a woman, which means you're going to have to work 3 times as hard,
Yeah.
as your white male counterparts." And so that type of conversation is critical, I believe, for family members to have, with their children. It is so, so critical so that you aren't shocked, when you're up against stuff, so that you learn how to navigate
Right.
the marketplace, as we call it, out there in the world. And so I really appreciate that question because I feel like I've drawn just from a variety of places and just being authentic, with myself, having a clear sense of who I am, having a clear sense of what my gifts are and what I have to share and how other people can benefit from them. And so those are the things that I try to impart to parents in my coaching with them, as well as in the groups that I facilitate with girls.
That just gave me chills because obviously we have a personal relationship, but I think in terms of when I've reached out to you about different things that I've gone through, and it's like the key thing that you said is being your authentic self. And it's one thing when you want to portray that to, just like even as we're sitting here and we're having a truly an organic conversation about period of empowerment and this journey that we've both gone on to get to where we are right now. But even beyond that is just being comfortable with oneself. you know that's who you're with all the time, is yourself. And so being able to tap into your emotional side and work through those things is really important. The other thing is how you convey who you are to other people, because obviously I can walk in the room and I'm Cheryl Rogers all day, but someone else may walk into that same room with me and like, who is this girl? What does she think she's doing? Oh, is she really that happy? Truly, I am. Because I think, and you and I have talked about this in the past, I've been through a lot in my life, and I realize I'm blessed to be here. And much like what you said, I have a purpose. I am purpose driven. And so, whatever that purpose is, and it continues to evolve, much like having this platform, it's for a purpose. And here it is now, we're able to collaborate and talk about something that's great and that's going to be impactful and make a huge difference in not only young women's lives, but young men's lives and their parents. And having those sometimes difficult conversations requires to have a support system as parents to be able to tap into, to say, hey, I need help here. I don't know how to approach this child and make sure that I'm giving them the best foundation that they need to get to their next phase in life. And so I think this is absolutely wonderful in what you're doing. And I continue, I'm continuing. I want to learn more.
Well, you're just right on point, right on target with what you said around, the parenting piece. Unfortunately, we're not taught how to parent. Like, there's no
No,
manual.
there is no manual.
And so I recently facilitated a training in our private Facebook group. We have a private Facebook group for parents called, for who I call power parents, because we all need to be empowered as well. And so I
Absolutely.
recently facilitated a training on self-esteem, for instilling self-esteem in our girls. And it was related to the power of praise. And
Mm,
so a lot of times, we're raising our kids, we're busy, we're sticking and moving, we're moving and grooving. And we often, as parents, as adults, teachers, community influencers, often don't take the time to praise our girls and our sons, for that matter. And it's really important that we do that, because part of our jobs as leaders is to help children figure out what their gifts are, is to help them know why they're here on the planet, to help them know what it means to be authentic for them, right? Because that's
yes.
certainly individualized. And so knowing and paying attention to the kids so that you are looking for those opportunities to praise as a parent is just so critical in fostering self-esteem. And self-esteem is like at the root of almost all of the work that I do. And as
Certainly.
parents, we haven't been systematically taught how to instill a healthy self-esteem in our children. And so the members of our Facebook group are just so appreciative, to have a safe space where we can discuss these things, where we can get support, where we can share ideas. It's just a wonderful community.
It when you said that, one of the things that I struggled with growing up was self-esteem. It stemmed from, one, I had a acne that was terrible. I was overweight. I've had that kind of, even though I'm the oldest between my sec, but I'm truly the middle child when you think about it in this situation. And so middle child syndrome, if you will, or at least I took that on because that was something else that was put out there. Oh, Shay Shay has the middle child syndrome. And so you're like, okay, what is that? Yes, I have that. So add that for 500. Yes, thank you, Alex. That kind of thing. The other thing was that um coming up, you aspire. I look at you and I was just like, I want to do that. I mean, you were what I thought was extroverted because I saw all of the different things that you were engaged in. And I wanted to do that. You try to align yourself with someone who is positive and they're able to navigate through dealing with friendships with girlfriends. And when you start liking boys and, you know, finding your own style and and trying to do it with grace, and it's not always easy. And one of the things I remember, and I think I said this last episode, was like talking to my mom, but it was like certain things I didn't necessarily feel comfortable talking to my mom. And then I think I had the infinite wisdom that my girlfriends couldn't give me all the correct information as well. But one of the things that she did do in correlation with trying to build my self-esteem is I started to journal. I started to write I have all these feelings and were bottled up. And it was also a way for me to help with, I had a learning disability that wasn't later diagnosed until I was in high school, but had dyslexia. So there was that stigma there. And I'm like, I know I'm smart. I know what I'm talking about, but I was made to feel not so smart, not necessarily in my home, because you know how our family is. They encourage education and encourage you to continue to strive harder. But it was when I went outside of that covenant of my home where I had that love and support, and I'm at school. And it's nothing worse than when you have someone, not only in your peer group, but even an educator, tell you, well, this is probably the best you'll ever do. And like what that does is crushes you. And you're like, really? This is it? This is all I've got. So to know that there's a group of parental support, and then also there's this network, I'm assuming, of young ladies that'll be able to come together and have a shared experience and feed off of each other. If I could go back 30 years, I would love to have that. But in a sense, I did, because I had that within the inner dynamic of our family. But now to see that same kind of concept manifest into period of empowerment, this is amazing.
Yes, thank you so much. And I really appreciate some of the things that you just shared, because I really consider myself to be a parenting partner.
Hmm.
I partner with power parents because, like you said, when you were coming up, sometimes there were some things that you just didn't want to talk to your mom about.
Right,
She may have
right.
been, very open to having the conversation, and knowledgeable, but it was just like, it feels a little funny.
Yeah.
And so that's why I feel like it's really important for parents to establish a village, to establish a community, and have your children involved in things that are going to support them. For example, we have the amazing Brown Girls Empowerment Virtual Spring Break Camp coming up in a couple
Ooh,
weeks. And
okay.
that is going to be just an amazing experience for girls to come together, for me as the facilitator to praise them, because I will be actively looking for those opportunities to praise. They're going to be doing some individual work. We're going to be working collectively and practicing acknowledging other people and praising others, because that's a muscle a lot of times that we have not strengthened yet, our praising muscle, praising and
Absolutely.
acknowledging other people. We're going to be doing some choreographed dance. We're going to be analyzing some Black art. It's just going to be a wonderful
Oh,
experience. And so those are the types of things and activities and special, unique experiences that we really want our children to be a part of. Because even though we as parents, like I said, we may want and be open to having these difficult conversations, but sometimes our kids just don't want to talk to us.
true.
So it's really important as a parent that you have lined up some people that your children do feel comfortable talking to, who you trust, you know, to
Yeah.
help with their rearing, because that's really what's happening. So the empowerment camp is one of those places.
So tell me a little bit more about the empowerment camp. How is it on a specific platform, and who is it, solely you that's working in this camp, or do you have other professionals that are working with you? What does that look like?
Yeah, so the camp is virtual this year, obviously due to
Yes.
COVID. So it's going to be offered on Zoom.
Okay.
And it is offered over 2 weeks. So week one starts on March 29th and goes through April 2nd. And then week two starts on April 5th and goes through April 9th. And so we are going to be, I am the primary facilitator,
Okay.
and we'll be tapping into other sources as well. So, for example, we'll be tapping into mindfulness. And so I have
Mm,
some little nuggets of very wonderful expertise in terms of mindfulness. So we'll be listening to some music and kids rapping about
yes.
mindfulness. We'll be doing some mindful sits, which is basically sitting and being still and paying attention, to your breathing. So we'll be tapping.
Self-awareness.
Yes. And
Yes.
that's really a part of self-care. And that's something that everybody I feel needs to do, adults as well. So if
Hmm.
we can teach it to our youth, it's just going to be another strategy, another self-care tool that they have. So we'll be tapping into some choreographed dance. I'm not the expert on that, but I'm tapped into the experts on that as well. So we're going to be tapping into the expertise from a variety of sources. I'm just so excited about it.
That is absolutely amazing. And one of the things that kind of stuck out to me when you were just saying that was that there's music and arts involved. And I feel like, unfortunately, depending on what school you're at, that's not ever present anymore. And I feel like at the core of school, even when I had, you have your classes that you gravitate towards or that you liked or you didn't like, but music, even though I'm not musically inclined, but it was definitely something, it was an outlet for me. And it was something that it was a shared experience with, I remember doing music in the class and you might get the triangle, someone else might have, drum, but it brought us together. And that's really important because music is a universal language. No matter what genre of music it is, it's something that we all can relate to, if you will. So I think that's absolutely wonderful that you have this infusion of music and arts. How do the parents play a part in this? Are they a part? I know that you have the Facebook group that supports them, but are they brought in during the camp at any point, or are they or do they get like updates on what's happening on a week to week basis, that type of thing?
Yes, absolutely. So the parents, although they won't be participating in the camp itself, because again,
Okay,
sometimes girls, they and boys, they'll open up when their parents aren't around,
this is true.
or
This is
when
true.
they think their parents aren't paying attention.
Right, right.
And so we're wanting to providing the space, the safe space for that. But yes, so the parents will be receiving updates actually throughout the week, 3 or 4 updates throughout the week about what we focused on that particular day. They'll be given tips on what to talk to their daughter about
Okay.
as it related to what we addressed, that particular day. So they will definitely be involved in that process. Again, that sort of partnership process. So they can rely on me to be the primary facilitator during these 5 days. And then they'll be given, some things that they can do at home, that they can try out at home and ask their daughter about. So we'll also, in the updates, we'll be including questions like, ask your daughter about this, ask her what she thinks about this, because it's sort of strengthening that discussion muscle as well. That's another thing that as parents sometimes is difficult with around these difficult, conversations like, race and racism, difficult conversations around romantic relationships and bodies and periods and all these other things, privilege, that sometimes we don't know what to say. We don't know how to start, the conversations, or when we receive a question from our kids, we're just dumbfounded and don't know how to respond. So in those updates that we'll be giving, we'll give them some tips on, ask about this, mention this, ask her to show you this. And then at the end of each week, the girls will receive a certificate of completion that will be emailed to the parents as well. So I'm just really excited about partnering with the parents in that way.
I love that because it goes back to what you were saying, those nuggets where you are celebrating and praising. And like you said, it's a muscle and it's not always easy. And then it's not always easy to acknowledge yourself and say, I did all right. I did that. And it's not being conceited. It's not, being full of yourself, because sometimes those are negative connotations that are put out there. If you take ownership for something fantastic you did, just like, you're expected to take ownership when you've made a mistake or you've done something that isn't to the standard or liking. It's really important that we also take ownership. I did something fantastic. I made a difference in someone's life. I was there for my friend. I was, and these are things to be proud about, because at the core of it all, this is what you're rooted in. And this is how you make a difference. And like you said, I think in the beginning is you find that purpose, your purpose for why you're being here. And that self-awareness is really essential in that journey for sure. So it's a 2-week camp. Parents are getting updates. There's amazing activities that are happening. Is there anything interactive in the sense like where the girls will have homework and they have to bring it back and present? Are they working on those presentation skills and things like that? Because I know for me, everything my mom made into a learning opportunity, which is why I stand here right now. And I'm, I can say it now, but back then I was just like, why does this have to be like school? But it's all in how you present it and how you engage, So what does that
Yes,
look like?
yes, yes, yes. We're definitely keeping this educational and fun. So the
Okay.
girls will be given the opportunity, for example, one of the art projects that we'll be doing is we'll be making kente cloths, small ones out of paper.
Nice.
We'll be talking about what kente means and where that comes from. We'll be talking about the meaning of various colors because colors have,
Yes.
meaning and can elicit various emotions. And so during the day that we start that, we may not finish it together that day. So the
Right.
girls, their homework, so to speak, if they choose, would be to work on it on their own and then come back the next day and then present their kente cloth, present what it is that their creativity, their
Mhm.
uniqueness, because they're gonna be choosing their own colors. And kente is all about various patterns. So they're
Yes.
going to get to choose their various patterns as well and share with us, why they chose particular colors and what it means to them. And and receive that praise. That's one of the ways we'll be practicing acknowledging others, praising others, using that praise muscle as well. So the girls are on spring break, so I'm acknowledging that it's supposed to be a break, but
Right.
it'll be fun in terms of presenting their work that is important to them.
Now, let me ask you, so is it over the course of each day? Is it a certain amount of hours that you all will be spending together? And the other thing is, are there still openings available?
Yes. So the camp is 2 hours a day. So it's
Okay.
10 a.m. to 12 noon Pacific time, which is
Okay.
1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern. So 2 hours a day. So they still get some break time,
Yes.
as since they are on spring break. And absolutely, there are some openings left for week one and week two. And so I would just love for parents, if they're interested, they can go to bit.ly/Brown Girls Camp. So that's bit.ly and then /Brown Girls Camp. And that's where they can go and see all the details and to register before the spots fill out.
I love that. And I will definitely make sure that that's posted along with this video and all of the other wonderful information that you have. And is there a cost associated with the camp?
Yeah, so it's $125
Okay.
for the week, for that week of curriculum. And I'm just really excited to share that we have actually secured a couple of sponsorships. So we have limited scholarships, full
Okay.
scholarships for the full $125 available. And so if parents are interested, they can email me directly at info@drcarmenmcneil.com. So that's INFO, the little at sign, DRCARMENMCNEIL.com. So info@drcarmenmcneil.com. And there's an application process because
Okay.
this camp is really unique and we want to make sure that we're selecting girls in terms of need-based who are really going to be active, and contributing and really feel like they're special and
For
important
sure.
participating in the scholarship. So there is a 100-word essay that the girls will be asked to respond to, a little prompt about why the camp is important and why they want to participate. But we're just so thrilled to be able to offer these scholarships as well.
I think that's absolutely amazing. And then also the buy-in for the young ladies, because when you invest your time into something, it's a true investment, and I love that. Even before being accepted into the camp, they have to prove that, this is what I want to do, and that I'm going to honor this time commitment of 2 hours each day, even during spring break, and do something that is not only good for myself, but that they can, in effect, pour into each other as well during this process. So that's absolutely wonderful. I love that. I can honestly say when I've ever had to, and this is in work or, school, when I've had to really take that time to devote into sharing why I wanted to be a part of a process or an event or activity, it was that buy-in, and I'm like, hey, I did all this. I'm here now, and so I think that's absolutely wonderful. Do you anticipate seeing this happen over the course of every break, or will this be an ongoing program that will happen even in conjunction with? I mean, obviously, we're all into this virtual, if you will. I think that's a hybrid virtual is the way of life now, but will this continue on, excuse me, throughout the year?
Absolutely. So right now we are trying to figure out how the summer offering will go, with
Okay,
COVID and things up in the air and people's level of comfort around, being physically together or not. So
right.
we're trying to figure out the how that's going to be offered, whether parents will be more comfortable with continuing the virtual format, or whether they want to be face to face. So I definitely want to encourage parents to email me, if they're interested. Definitely, if they're interested, they can join our private Facebook group, and I'll just mention that that's at bit.ly/period of empowerment. So bit.ly/period of empowerment to join the private Facebook group. So yes, so they can stay tuned as far as what is happening. They can also follow us on Eventbrite. Eventbrite is where the registration occurs for the camp, and
Okay.
there's a little follow button on the registration page. And so if they click that, when we have our upcoming offerings, they will receive an email so that they're in the know and can register their daughters, their beautiful brown girls, before the tickets are all sold out. So yes, we anticipate that during the upcoming spring breaks, sometimes perhaps during winter break, but definitely summer. We're
Okay.
wanting to continue as well and have some theme-based camps as well. So I'll just drop that little nugget and
I
then
like that.
keep it a secret
That
for
is, yes, I love that. Boy, I tell you, I can't even imagine going through what the kids are going through now with regards to the pandemic back when I was in school, because, we were just getting on the World Wide Web and being able to do, things in a virtual sense. But I find that even though it's hard for them not to have that social aspect of it per se, with the distance learning, when you're able to kind of mix that in, it makes it so much easier, I think, and you get that true buy-in, and I think they open up because they're very comfortable in the virtual sense. We're all trying to navigate this, but our children, that this is what they've grown up with, and I think all that you're doing, Carmen, is absolutely fantastic. It's definitely needed. I can attest from maybe being one of your earlier Brown Girls and your Brown Girl Collective from way back when, but I know the power of positivity. I know the power of influence and empowerment. And um, this is just, it's absolutely wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And I applaud your efforts. And, as a parent of a brown boy and a brown girl, I think it's really important to have this village, and it's constructed with great professionals that know what they're talking about and can give you great advice. And also, I think even with the Facebook group, having that village, even for the parents, is really important. A lot of times when you're going through something with your children, you're the only one, and being able to tap into other parents and see how they're navigating and what their approach is, and just having that outlet to talk. I think that really speaks to what you're trying to do. It's communication. It's about knowing that even if you're going through something that's difficult, or you're kind of uncertain of how to approach something, you still have a collective of individuals that are there to support you through it, and encourage and empower. So kudos,
Thank you.
kudos to
If I
you.
could offer just one other little nugget,
Certainly.
this whole period of empowerment certainly relates to girls, relates to women, relates to parents as well. And it also really attests to the fact that socially, that there are, lots of things happen in terms of the racial environment, in terms of, the social environment. And so, a lot of times, girls, boys, of color, particularly African American, our brown brothers and sisters are really bombarded with a lot of negative, imagery out there. And so this camp is one of the things to really buffer, against that. But the other thing that needs to occur is that white parents need to be on board with ending, racism. And so the other thing that's coming down the line is for white parents and who wants to learn how to be anti-racist and teach their children how to be anti-racist as well. So that sort of coaching program is coming. It's on the horizon. I'm so ready to work with parents, white parents who are who are ready, who acknowledge their white privilege, but just don't know how to have their conversations. They want to be able to have a safe space to talk, to air, their experiences, to receive
Certainly,
constructive feedback in a safe environment so that they're not feeling attacked.
for sure.
That is what we're going to be providing as well. Because if we're going to end this, if we're going to eliminate this, it has to start with our children. And frankly, parents don't know how to do it yet, right? They
Right.
don't, there are at least not enough parents don't know how to do it. I'm just reminded there was some years ago that I was with my child at a group building event that was sponsored by UC Berkeley. So
Mhm.
basically you come and we were all in this room and they had various, big, large tables with parents and kids working on, and they had all these materials that they provided. And so just a wonderful environment. And so I'm sitting at a large table with, my child and other children and parents working on stuff. And I noticed that to my left, there was a parent, I'm assuming a mom, a parent of the child that she was talking to, and she said to him in this strange voice, "That's not okay." And so, of course, because it was a happy environment, but to hear
Right.
like the terror in her voice, I looked over, and I'm assuming her son, with all the materials there, he built a hanging apparatus with noose and everything involved, with a person hanging from it. And this was a white child. He was there with his white friend. And I could tell that, again assuming the mom was mortified. She was dumbfounded, but she didn't
Yes.
know what to say. And her
Right.
child asked her, "How come it's not okay?" And she had no response. And
Mm,
so,
got it.
although, yes, and so we really want to be able to give our white allies, the what to say, how to
Mm,
respond in that type of environment, and give them the tools so hopefully, they can prevent those sorts of things happening. But to be able to
certainly.
effectively respond is
Right.
really, really important. So I just wanted to drop that little nugget as well as another way that I'm helping to partner with parents.
Absolutely. And it's a collective. It takes a village, like you started off saying. And it's not just a village that's based in, our own community, but also the surrounding communities around us. And I think it's really important for us to have a deeper understanding both ways, but definitely it's really because I know it's difficult for people to. I've had someone where they didn't want to say, I mean, there were, just to paint a picture, there were several other Cheryls, believe it or not, as if, and there were several short women, every kind of descriptive way you could have said. And then the lady was trying to point out that she was talking about me, but I was the only brown one. And I was just like, it's okay. And it's not a negative connotation because guess what? Every time I wake up, I'm this brown black woman when I wake up, and I'm short, and all the other descriptive things that you can think to say. And it's okay. But I guess formulating that to say that, there has to be this level of understanding and comfortability and sensitivity. I get that. But I think this is a great way to start the conversation. And through conversation, obviously, you hope for understanding. And from that understanding, being able to navigate through this world and coexist and celebrate our differences as opposed to looking at them as something that is negative. So,
Absolutely.
wow, this has been just a truly informative conversation. I've learned a lot. I know my listeners and the viewers have. So, I can't thank you enough for being here. I always like to give my guests an opportunity to acknowledge anybody that they would like to acknowledge. Give us, obviously, I'm going to make sure that I have all of your contact information, but this is an opportunity. You have the platform just to share and give of yourself or give a shout out, whatever you want to do. The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, first, I would
Absolutely.
definitely like to offer your viewers and listeners a free gift, a free special gift. Um,
Okay.
and that is my 5 tips to make her period positively powerful.
All
Because
right.
again, as parents, we don't know how to do this. And so we need help. We need some guidance, and we can follow 5 tips. And so if your audience would, be interested in receiving this free gift and possibly passing it along to, other parents as well, their colleagues or friends or what have you, they can go to bit.ly/positive period,
Okay.
bit.ly/positive period, and then they will have access to and be emailed this free gift. So I think it's really, really, really invaluable. So I wanted to offer that to your audience as well. And
Thank
just
you.
say, yes. And then finally, just say that, as parents, we need support, and I just want to encourage parents to do whatever they can in their power, which is why I call them power parents, because it takes all kind of powers to raise our
Yes,
children.
it does.
Um, to align and rub shoulders with those people who can support you in raising your children. Like that is just so important. Seek out those resources for yourself and for your kids as well. So just want to encourage parents to do that. Again, they can contact me. I love having conversations about how I can support parents individually or in groups as well. And just looking forward to partner with more parents.
I think that is absolutely fantastic. We started off with saying, obviously, we don't get a guide that comes with being a parent, but if you can get a supplemental guide and, as you navigate through different experiences and journeys, it's always so positive. And then also to have this whole collective that will come together and you can share, those things like the children are going to be able to benefit from it, but also as parents, you know that you're not alone and you have that support. I think everything that you're doing is absolutely amazing. I think it's going to be truly beneficial for everyone that's involved. And I look forward to seeing the growth of the period of empowerment and all the other programs that are going to spawn from this. So thank you, Dr. Carmen McNeil, for all that you have brought to the platform today. But also, I have to give you a personal thanks. We are family. You are someone who has always encouraged me and always been a true example of learning how to navigate, whether it's through exuberant positive experiences or even when we've had difficult ones, and you do it with such grace. And I know my baby girl is 25 now, but we still all benefit from the power and empowerment that you give us all. So um I'm kind of like one of her first test babies. I'll say that when it comes to that. And when I say that, I say it facetiously, but all the things that you're doing are absolutely wonderful. And thank you. Thank you very
Thank you for the
much.
acknowledgement. And I just have to give it right back to you because this is an amazing platform that you've created in terms of um, allowing people to discuss a variety of experiences. And I just love the concept of living without limits. It is
Living
fantastic.
without limits.
Thank you for this.
Absolutely. Well, as we close out, I always like to tell people you got to check in with each other. And this is the period of empowerment is the ultimate check-in. You're creating a safe space for your brown girls. You're creating a safe space for parents who are wanting to support their children and really get them solid and ready to navigate in this tough world that's out here. But I thank you for that. And then beyond that, we must check in with ourselves. And it's that self-care that you have talked about throughout this whole interview that's really important. And it's okay. It's okay to check in with yourself. It's okay to acknowledge all the great things that you're doing. Just exercise that muscle. And thank you again for gracing the platform. And I look forward to hearing about how the camp goes. So perhaps we can have you come back. And I will definitely make sure that all of the contact information and that amazing free gift that you've offered to everyone is just, we're here for it. So thank you very much. And I hope that you have the rest of your week is very experiential. And we look forward to welcoming you back.
Thank you so much. This has been an amazing experience.
Thank you.